This arrogant tourist thought he could do anything, mock, spit, and walk away like a hero. The crowd stayed silent, cameras kept rolling, and he was already picturing his viral fame. But what Jada did next wiped that smug grin off his face. And trust me, this is just the beginning. The sun over Washington, D.C. was brutal that day, beating down on the marble steps of the Lincoln Memorial like it was punishing the city. Tourists swarmed the area, snapping pictures and munching on overpriced pretzels, their chatter creating a constant hum in the background. Standing tall amidst the chaos, dressed in her immaculate uniform, was 27-year-old Jada Walker. Her posture was razor-sharp, her polished boots planted firmly on the ground, and her focus was unshakable. Jada wasn't just anyone. She had recently completed her service in the Air Force, trading in her flight suit for a new mission, guarding the nation's monuments. She took immense pride in her role, not just for what it represented, but because to her, it was about honoring history. Today, however, that pride was about to be tested. Among the throngs of tourists, a man in a glaringly red tracksuit strutted down the walkway, his every move practically screaming, "Look at me." His name was Todd Ramsey, a 40-something who had somehow turned being obnoxious into a full-time job. With a bulky backpack slung over his shoulder and a smirk that could curdle milk, Todd was on a mission. His infamous social experiments had already earned him a reputation for stirring trouble, most of which ended in handcuffs. And today, Todd had his sights set on Jada. A camera was strapped to his forehead, its little red light blinking ominously. He scanned the crowd like a wolf, looking for its next meal before locking onto Jada. Her stoic demeanor, the rigid discipline etched into her stance. It was like a neon sign to him, screaming perfect target. Todd made a beeline for her, weaving through the crowd with a swagger that made people instinctively step aside. Jada, focused on her duty, didn't notice him until his voice sliced through the air. "Hey, soldier girl," he barked, his tone dripping with mockery. "What's the point of standing here like a statue? You even know why you're doing this? Or are you just playing dress-up?" Jada didn't flinch. She'd dealt with hecklers before. Her training had taught her to keep her emotions locked down tighter than a vault. But Todd wasn't backing off. He took a step closer, his voice growing louder. "What, you deaf or something? Can you even talk? Or is your job just to stand there looking useless?" The nearby tourists started to notice. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some people pulling out their phones, sensing a spectacle brewing. Jada remained still, her hands clasped tightly at her sides. Todd, emboldened by her lack of response, leaned in, his grin stretching wider. And then, as if to punctuate his taunts, he spat. Right in her face. The crowd collectively gasped, the sound slicing through the thick, humid air. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. Jada's jaw clenched, her chest rising and falling with steady, controlled breaths. She reached up, wiping her face with the sleeve of her pristine glove. Her movements were measured, deliberate. Todd, meanwhile, laughed like he'd just pulled the greatest prank of all time. "Oh man, that was gold. You're famous now, soldier girl. Say hi to your fans," he jeered, waving his camera around like a trophy. Jada didn't move a muscle. Her face remained as calm as still water, but her eyes, they burned. Not with anger, but with something colder, sharper, the kind of look that could cut through steel. The crowd buzzed with murmurs. Some people were visibly horrified. Others pulled out their phones to start recording. Yet, no one stepped in. It was as if they were all trapped in some twisted theater production, waiting to see how the next act would unfold. Jada, however, wasn't performing. Her mind was laser-focused on the protocol drilled into her since her Air Force days. Stay professional, do not escalate. But even professionals have their limits, and Todd Ramsey was about to find out exactly where hers were. Jada took a slow, deep breath, her lungs filling with the thick, humid air. The heat of the day was nothing compared to the fire she felt boiling under her skin. She dealt with rude tourists before, even the loud ones who thought the world revolved around their selfie sticks. But this was on a whole other level. Still, she knew the rules. Stay composed, stay professional. That didn't make it any easier. Todd, meanwhile, was having the time of his life. With a smug grin plastered across his face, he whipped out his phone and pointed it directly at her. the little screen already live streaming his antics. "What? You're just gonna stand there?" he sneered, circling her like a shark. "Come on, say something. Or are you just one of those lifeless robots? Maybe you shouldn't even be here, huh?" Her hand curled into a fist, almost instinctively, her nails digging into her palm like anchors holding her steady. She couldn't let him get to her. No matter how badly she wanted to knock that smug grin off his face, she knew the stakes. One wrong move, and it wouldn't just be her reputation on the line, it'd be her whole career. The crowd started to grow, drawn in by the commotion like moths to a flame. Whispers turned into murmurs, then into hushed comments that rippled through the gathering like a wave. "Hey man, leave her alone!" someone finally shouted from the back. Todd glanced over his shoulder, his grin stretching even wider. "Oh, come on," he said, waving the comment off like it was nothing. "This is public property, right? I'm just having a conversation." He turned back to Jada, holding the phone up so the camera captured her face. "You hear that, folks? This is where our taxes are going. Stone-faced guards who can't even say a word. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Jada took a step back, maintaining the mandated distance. Her movements were measured, precise, like a coiled spring waiting to snap. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of her partner, stationed a little ways off, speaking urgently into his radio. Backup was coming, but not fast enough. And Todd? Todd saw her restraint as weakness, encouragement even. He stepped in closer, invading her personal space like he owned it. "You even like this job?" he asked, leaning in so far that she could smell the cheap cologne radiating off him. "Or is this just like your last resort? Bet you couldn't cut it anywhere else." The tension in the air was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Then, out of nowhere, a booming voice from the crowd broke the spell. "Man, she's got more honor in her little finger than you've got in your whole body. Back off before someone makes you." The crowd erupted into a low murmur of agreement. Todd turned to face the speaker, his expression flickering with irritation. "Yeah? And what are you going to do about it?" he shot back. But the crowd wasn't his real problem. His real problem was the woman in uniform standing just a few feet away, her eyes locked on him like lasers. Jada stepped forward, her boots clicking sharply against the stone pavement. When she spoke, her voice was like ice, calm, controlled, and cutting through the noise like a blade. "Sir," she said, her tone carrying the weight of authority, "I am ordering you to step back at least 2 meters and cease recording immediately. This is your official warning." The crowd fell silent, the gravity of her words sinking in. Even Todd seemed caught off guard, his cocky grin faltering for just a moment. But it didn't last long. "Oh, really?" he said, breaking into laughter. "What are you going to do if I don't? Call for help?" "Newsflash, I'm already recording. You're live, sweetheart." Jada didn't flinch, her eyes narrowed, her stance firm. Todd had no idea what he'd just unleashed. Jada took a deliberate step forward, her every movement precise, as if choreographed. Slowly, methodically, she removed her right glove, folding it neatly in her hand. Her gaze locked onto Todd's, sharp enough to cut through steel. The energy around her shifted. She wasn't just a guard anymore. She was the calm before a storm. "This is your final warning, sir," she said, her voice low and steady, each word landing like a hammer. Todd predictably didn't take the hint. Instead, he smirked, mistaking her restraint for hesitation. He stepped even closer, holding his phone right up to her face, the camera lens gleaming like it was mocking her. "What are you gonna do, huh? File a report? Tell your boss? You can't touch me," he taunted, his tone dripping with false bravado. And then it happened. In a single fluid motion, Jada reached out and seized Todd's wrist, twisting it with an efficiency that left no room for negotiation. Before he could process what was happening, she spun him around, locking his arm behind his back in a textbook-perfect hold. His phone clattered to the ground, the live stream capturing nothing but the pavement, as his followers were left to guess what came next. Todd yelped, his confidence evaporating in an instant. "What are you doing? This is assault! Someone stop her!" Jada leaned in slightly, her voice calm yet firm, like ice on a blade. "Assault? Oh no, sir. This is self-defense, and lucky for me, the whole thing's on video." The crowd, which had been a mix of hesitant onlookers and murmuring spectators, erupted into cheers and applause. Phones were whipped out, every angle of the scene being recorded for posterity. People began shouting over one another. Finally, someone shut him up. She's a legend. Hey, can someone tag me in this? Jada held her composure as Todd squirmed in her grip, his protests growing more desperate. Let me go. This is illegal. You'll regret this. Oh, I doubt that, Jada replied coolly, her grip unyielding. Now, stay still and wait for the officers to arrive. Minutes later, the wail of sirens pierced through the buzz of the crowd. 2 officers approached, their expressions shifting from curiosity to understanding as they took in the scene. Jada released Todd into their custody, her explanation brief and professional. This individual was creating a disturbance, refused multiple warnings to cease recording, and invaded my personal space. His actions justified this intervention, she stated, her tone unwavering. Todd, still trying to salvage his shattered ego, began sputtering excuses. She attacked me for no reason. I was just... One of the officers cut him off. Sir, we've already seen some of the footage. You're coming with us. As Todd was led away, the crowd erupted again, their energy infectious. Videos of the incident were already flooding social media, captions ranging from "justice served" to "this woman is a queen." Jada took a deep breath, her heart finally slowing to a steady rhythm. Despite the chaos, she had done her job. She had stood her ground, upheld her dignity, and most importantly, sent a message that disrespect wouldn't be tolerated. By the time she finished her shift and checked her own phone, the internet had already crowned her a hero. Clips of her takedown had gone viral, racking up millions of views in a matter of hours. People from all walks of life were praising her poise and professionalism. She's what this country needs more of. Jada Walker for president. Never mess with a woman who knows what she's doing. For Jada, it wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about doing the right thing, no matter the odds. And as for Todd, well, his sudden fall from online glory would be its own story, a story that Jada had no intention of following, because at the end of the day, she had bigger things to protect than her reputation. What would you have done in Todd's place? Do you think his behavior was out of line, or was Jada's response the perfect way to handle the situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you or someone you know ever been in a similar situation? Let us know how it turned out. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you and share it with others to keep the conversation going. This story was created with a purpose, to shed light on important issues like respect, accountability, and professionalism. It's a reminder that standing up for what's right can inspire others and make the world a better place.